Yeah. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. 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 Listen 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 to the Wild Die Podcast.
Welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast, episode 111. My name is Eric Lamour, aka No Sleeves McGee, and here are my co-hosts, Morning Flower Gary McCallum and Carl Big Deal Kiesler. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, guys.
Right now, so
It's
much
here to
hate.
stay. It's here to stay. Can't
I don't like
love it. Cannon.
Wow.
Yeah. It's great.
One day I will meet Candace and she will get wrecked. Just saying.
And we have a guest today, returning to the show after probably a good year, at least, maybe two even. Richard Woolcock. Welcome, Richard.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, fan favorite.
It's always a pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's always a pleasure having the majestic Savage Worlds man come show. What is your moniker? Do you got one? I mean, other than Zadmir that you use on everything, but do they call you like the Savage Savant?
No.
Savage Goblin.
You need to choose one for me, Gary.
I think Savage Savant is it, man. I think it just rolled right off the tongue, and it's gonna stick. I started trying saying that to Eric, but we all know that doesn't fit.
It's not true. Well, I hope everybody had a good Christmas. Well, Gary was quiet and intimate and warm and cozy for you and the kids.
Mine was, yep. It was very lonely, to be honest, as I waited for my kids to get up, which we were talking about post-show, which was or pre-show. I got my pre's and my posts mixed up. But yeah, it was pretty funny, man. It's the first time they've ever slept in. 15 and 19, they didn't get up till 10 o'clock. I don't know what was going on. I was expecting some 8 o'clock package opening, and then it would be over by 9, and it would just be me sitting on the couch watching TV crying alone.
You got some cool stuff, some cooking gear.
Yeah. What is this, Eric? Is this the Christmas podcast?
Yeah.
I got the food ninja, dude. You want me to talk about the food ninja with the air crisping feature on it and stuff like that? Can make French fries, chicken nuggies. Oh man, all sorts of good stuff. It's a fat man stream, all in one container. Make some rice, boil some potatoes. It's glorious, Eric. It's glorious. It is a glorious piece of machinery.
A Wild Eye cooking show.
Yeah.
You're all jealous. I can see it on the looks of your faces. So, just stop right now. What'd you get for Christmas, Eric?
I got some posters. I got some crafting gear. I got a couple books. Got a bunch of stuff. Some cool stuff. It's not lame. It's good.
It's not a ninja foodie. Come on, Carl. What did you get? Top my ninja foodie, buddy.
I don't know if I can top a Ninja Foodie. I mean, that sounds awesome.
Right?
I got some graphic novels from.
Yep. Nope.
No. Oh, I got some of those terrain crates from Mantic Games. Those are pretty cool.
Cool, but nice. Not a food ninja.
No, it's not a food ninja. I'm sorry. You're right.
No. Richard, can you top a food ninja? A ninja foodie, it's called?
Well, I got quite a lot of whiskey for Christmas.
There you go.
Oh, wait a second. We might have a good contender here finally.
Yeah, I'm an easy person to buy for because I like whiskey. I also got some Black Kraken rum, so I've got a nice selection which I'm planning to work my way through slowly.
Wow, no wonder.
We get to learn a bit more about you and your habits.
Well, I don't drink a lot of alcohol, but I do like to have an occasional glass of whiskey in the evening.
Right.
And this is so bad. I cannot remember Manuel. Man, I could not remember Manuel's name for a second there. Manuel does a cool podcast where him and his buddy talk about Savage Worlds and stuff like that, and then they do a little whiskey shooter stuff at the end, don't they?
Yeah, whiskey and wildcats. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Mano is very much into whiskey, more so than me. I just enjoy drinking it, but he's a bit of a connoisseur. He's got a big selection and likes to compare them.
You ever go over to his house for some whiskey tasting?
Yeah. I mean, I game with him. Well, obviously we game remotely at the moment, but previously we did it in person. And occasionally, I'd go over to his place and then we'd have whiskey during the game, which is pretty nice. So
Savage Worlds is really just an excuse for you to go get drunk at Manuel's house. Well,
why not? You've got the Deadland roots, so it makes sense that you'd be playing poker and drinking whiskey while you're preparing for your Savage Worlds games.
Yep.
Nice. That is. Now, does your wife know about this?
Yeah, she bought me most of the whiskey.
Oh, what? Wow. Man, it sounds like heaven in Germany. Just, I'm just saying. It's like heaven over there. What's your favorite whiskey? No.
I don't know. I mean, I like trying different ones. My current favorite is it's a blended called White and McKay, and it's so I think Manu is very much into the single malts, whilst I tend to prefer the blended. But I like trying different ones, and actually, I got a couple of sample packs for Christmas with lots of little bottles. So I'm planning to try those and see if I can find a new favorite.
The best part about those little bottles is you could sneak off to the bathroom when nobody's looking and have a drink.
Thanks for the insider tip, Gary. I'll keep that in mind.
It's easy to sneak those little bottles in places as opposed to the big 40s and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you're Gary and at your size, it looks like a pocket drink, right?
Yeah. I just put it underneath my belly fold.
Serve it.
Yeah, all right. I've gotten used to warm whiskey.
Warm whiskey. So for the show today, the reason I wanted to invite Richard is because I've been running this play test campaign, and certain things keep coming up. Working as a group, the characters have to make research rolls or even performance rolls, and I'm having to choose between one character rolling and then the rest of the group supporting, or quick encounters. And of course, sometimes it's even, social conflict or even dramatic task. But for this episode, I wanted to focus on those two, support and quick encounters, and basically talk about a few situations where you might have to, you might be faced with picking one over the other, and why would you, and things like that. So I thought we'd take it to the edge with this baby. So let's do this. So yeah, take it to the edge, support, or a quick encounter. So here's a situation. We can talk about the other ones I have for my campaign boomstick later if needed. But something that I'm sure has come up in anybody's game, stealth. You've got a group trying to get past another group, and yeah, that's the definition of stealth. But it's not just one person trying to get through; it's a whole group. So I'm going to toss this around, maybe start with Carl over there and ask him, which of these two tools would you pick, one over the other, and why? What's your reasoning as a GM when a group will say, all right, we need to sneak past these guys because we don't want to fight them. We just want to get past or not be seen to set up an ambush later or get into a better position. What would you do?
Well, it depends on how you want to. The way I use support or quick encounters is, to me, it depends on what the outcome you want, what you want to focus on. If you want to focus on more of the character doing his own thing and really shining in the spotlight, I do quick encounters. But if you want to just get it over with, maybe let's just roll support and just move on, and because it's much quicker that way. To me, quick encounters are you're spotlighting a character, they roll, and how I do quick encounters, I say, explain to me what you did. How did you get from point A to point B using stealth? So in that way, every character has their own little spotlight, and I just go around the table and you highlight each character so they can shine in their own moment. It depends on what you as a GM are looking for. So I love quick encounters. I do them a lot in my Chime games, especially if you're running out of time. I've done that in final battles, and it's turned out great. If we have like 15 minutes left and we've got to pack up and we've also got to go to our next games and stuff, boom, let's do a quick encounter and we'll end the game. So it just depends on you as a GM on how you want to spotlight it. I think okay. Support if it's more of a group thing, where one person is kind of shining, and quick encounter if you want to just go around the table and just highlight everybody. So,
okay, I like that approach.
Yeah.
What do you think, Richard? How do you approach a situation like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, the quick encounter will be more for situations where each player is doing their own thing. If you're talking about a stealth roll where really the whole group has to complete it, otherwise the alarm goes off, then I wouldn't use a quick encounter for that. What I've used in the past is a dramatic task where either the players can take turns at rolling for it, or they can make cooperative roll or support rolls rather to assist each other. One of the sort of the stealth scenes I did in Saga of the Goblin Horde was the players had to make a dramatic task. They had to take turns, and for each success they got, they would eliminate one of the guards. And if they managed to complete the dramatic task, then they also killed all the guards before the alarm went off. If they say they fell one short, they would kill all the guards, but one of them managed to shout an alarm before they died. But stealth is a difficult one because often it is the case that if you're just trying to sneak past some people without killing them, then everybody really has to succeed at that, and it's going to be the weakest link. So I guess what you could do in that situation is say that whoever's the worst at stealth has to roll, and the others can try and support them to try and guide them through it.
Oh, okay. So instead of asking the group, because usually when I call for suggest a support, they'll all look at each other, then they'll ask, okay, what's your die type in stealth or whatever skill, and they'll pick whoever's the best to be the leader, and then
what you could say, okay, if you're going to try and sneak and eliminate the guards quietly so that the rest of the party can get past, then the highest person can roll. But if you want to sneak past them without spotting them, without leaving any dead bodies behind, then it's going to be the weakest link. I don't know, but I think really this does come down to the situation and to GM preference. And I do like to mix it up a bit and not always use the same mechanic. And Savage Worlds has got quite a selection of different rules for handling situations like this. And it's nice to mix things up a bit because it kind of provides a bit of a break. It breaks up the game. It doesn't feel like you're just repeating the same roles over and over again. If you try different things, I like doing that sort of thing.
Oh, so. I agree because, that's kind of why I wanted to have that conversation this morning, is because like you said, there are many tools in a GM's arsenal for Savage Worlds, but I wanted to, pry a little bit and see what's the reasoning for you guys behind making one decision over the other. And I agree, it's about the situation, but maybe some players, some GMs that are new to Savage Worlds and are faced with a situation and they're not sure which tool would be best and why. I think at the end of the day, it's you still get to the same end result, but the path that you choose to go there is going to be different, and why. So
yeah. I think the important thing is that you don't just let one person make all the roles and the others just sit around doing nothing. I think the important thing is that everybody gets to do something and contribute to the scene in some way.
Yeah. Gary, what do you think about all this?
I think Richard's right.
That's a smart answer right there.
Right? I'm going with Richard. That's my answer. Honestly, I think Richard is right in the sense where you're doing like a stealth roll and something like that. The idea that I have in my mind is you're trying to sneak past somebody, but you do have this weak link. So the people that are good at stealth, if they succeed, they can also support by doing things like throwing rocks, for example. You want to distract the guard or something like that. That's the gist. So I'm going to use my stealth roll to try and use some of the tricks that I know to get by objects or obstacles, I should say. And make it easier or show the other people that are maybe the weaker links. As far as doing the quick encounters and stuff like that, or the dramatic tasks that we were quickly talking about is not a thing that I do. I do support as well on, I was trying to think of a good example of when you would use it, but 50 fathoms when you're going down the canal towards where what's her name lives up on the spire. There's that sort of death-defying
the gullet,
river, the mouth or whatever, the gullet. That's what it's called, right? And so when you're going down that, you have this party of players that's on this boat doing this thing. You've got one guy driving, one guy's manning the sails to make sure you got the appropriate amount of power at the right time. You've got somebody pulling the rigging. People yelling at the crew members and stuff like that. Maybe you've got a lookout watching for rocks and stuff, and they all need to succeed in order for you to successfully get past that one stage that you're looking for. So in a situation like that, that's where I would use the support test. And then ultimately the captain makes the roll to see if, the boat succeeds, but the other components come together. So that's where I would differentiate the two.
No, it makes sense. And maybe for people that don't have the book or aren't familiar with it, maybe I should have started with this, but support is basically your character, is supporting another character. You pick one appropriate skill for the situation. It can be a persuasion to encourage someone, or like Gary just mentioned, notice to, if you need to navigate through something, you might be able to spot obstacles if you use notice. But there's always a max of support, and it max out at +4. So for every success and raise that you roll for your support, you provide a +1 or +2 bonus, to that character. But even if you got 4 people rolling raises, it would not be a +8 to that character. It maxes out at +4.
Except for strength rolls.
Yeah, to push something, really heavy or break down a door or something like that. Yeah, those don't max out, but it's good to know. But also, one thing that I run into is that without a penalty to that roll, if everybody's supporting all the time, it feels like it's almost too easy. It's almost impossible to fail, because if you get maxed out at +4, you basically have to roll a crit fail to fail your roll. Otherwise, you're going to roll a 2 at least. It's a 6. You need a 4 to succeed. So, but we can talk about that too.
It could be opposed too, right? Like that could be a opposed roll against somebody, the support. So
yeah, it could be.
Yeah,
that's true.
Depends on the situation.
What were you going to say, Richard?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just in regard to the dramatic tasks, with the old rules, it was a -2 by default,
right?
And it could be higher. And on a clubs, it would be an additional -2. And even with the new rules in Suede, you have to get more tokens than there are rounds. Mm-hmm. So just getting a single success, if you get a single success every round, you're still going to fail a dramatic task.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how many tokens it's required. They do, for a dramatic task, they do say like 1 token per participant per round. So, yeah. At least that's how I read it, unless you read...
I think you got 3 different types of dramatic task, and you need to, in 3, 4, or 5 rounds, you need to get 4, 6, or 8 tokens.
Yeah.
So if you got 1 success each round, you would still fail the dramatic task. So you do still need to get more than the cooperative roll. But you're right. If you've got the +4, and if you've got lots of players that are all helping out, it really does make it a lot easier.
Yeah, as opposed to quick encounters where you need as many successes. Yeah, I mean, a quick encounter is basically a free form type of narrative encounter that you run, and depending on if it's lethal or non-lethal, the effects are different. If it's for combat, obviously you would get wounds. For non-lethal, it would be different consequences. But the guidelines for success or failure is that if you have a group of 5 PCs, you would need 5 successes in total for that encounter to be successful. So it could be that one character doesn't get any successes at all, but another one gets erased, so it counts as 2. So yeah, it's different tool for different things, and that's what we're trying to wrap our heads around. All right, so we've covered. What was that?
I was going to mention something that Richard said, that because the Savage Worlds has all these different tools to spice up your game, that you don't have to use the same thing over and over again. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, I ran a Sin City game, one of my con games, and everybody's playing like Marv and Miho and all these iconic characters from Sin City. The first scene was bar fight, so there was a big combat. But the next scene, they had to get from point A to point B because there was bad stuff happening and there's bad guys everywhere in the city. Instead of doing like another round of combat over and over and over again, I ran a quick encounter. I just asked everybody around the table, how are you getting there? Because you don't have to go together. So Miho was doing stealth, so she rolled stealth. Marv was just walking in and just punching everybody. Dwight was driving with Gale and shotgun shooting people, so it was all different skill sets. And it was much cooler because I spotlighted everybody, and we're not sitting there just, okay, another round of combat. Mm-hmm. It's just different, but it's the same outcome because you're still fighting. You might be stealthing. Everybody's doing their own thing. So that's how I use quick encounters. They're freaking awesome.
Yeah, and I think it also, if you do, you start trying to decide between, say, a dramatic task and a quick combat, as you pointed out, you don't want to do combat and then another combat. And likewise, if you've just run a quick encounter in one scene and you move on to the next scene, I wouldn't personally want to use another quick encounter straight away. I would use dramatic task just to make it feel like a change of pace.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Pacing is important. That's what we talked about on this show before. You need to vary your encounters a little bit. All right, another example. So this one pertains a bit more to what I'm playing. So there's a new mechanic in the campaign in the game that I'm trying to introduce, where so characters play heavy metal musicians. they're a band, and they're fighting deadites. And they found out, someone from an order of ancient warriors showed them that if you looked good enough, you could find some old vinyls. And on those vinyls from heavy metal music, there's runes and the lyrics and the song itself. If you play it, it triggers a power. One of the powers from the book. So it's basically like a scroll, but instead it comes in a vinyl form, and then you have to play it, and you have to spend 1 minute playing the song per PowerPoint that you want to spend on that power. So you can add modifiers, like let's say last game they did boost trait, and they wanted everybody to receive the boost, so they had to pay a couple extra PowerPoints, and they played for 7 minutes to trigger that power. And then the duration of the power is, instead of rounds, it's hours. So for five hours after that, they had the boost trait because they performed that song. So the first time I used a quick encounter for it. And the reason why I chose that one at the first time was because you need to determine, instead of a dramatic task, was because you need to determine if it's a raise or just a normal success. So I took the highest result from whoever rolled, and they rolled a raise, so they got the +2 die type for that. And then the next game we tried with a dramatic task, because I mean, if you're familiar with like ETU or the Horror Companion, they do have like a way to cast rich rolls with dramatic task. But the way I understand it for that particular mechanic was that it's to increase the time or increase the power of the power as well. So I didn't really work out any details for this. And then I had him roll a bunch of times, but it felt like it was dragging on too much. It was just too long. Even though we only did 3 rounds with it, it just feels like, okay, let's roll. Now let's roll again. Now let's roll again, just for the same result, and the quick encounter worked better. But then again, I'm thinking maybe next time we'll try just one roll with support, because in a band you usually have a leader of the band and the one who's kind of the front man, or the one everybody comes to see, and that one would be the leader of that role, and then everybody else would support that role. So I don't know if I'm clear enough, if it makes sense to you guys, but maybe you can weigh in on how, if you were faced with that situation, you were running this plot point campaign, when heavy metal musicians want to cast their vinyl spell, which tool would be the best? Or maybe if it's good, like you guys were saying, that it's good to vary, and maybe sometimes you could do both or either. Maybe ask Richard first this time.
Well, I think it depends on what sort of mood you're trying to set for the magic. If you want something that feels kind of unpredictable, then kind of a ritual magic system like ETU would work well. If you want it to be something that's used quite often, then something like the standard PowerPoint rules, I think, just a casting a spell would be fine. And yeah, your point about the dramatic tasks not having a degree of success, I think that's one issue. But what you could try looking at is the social conflict rules, which have like a margin of success, and you could try adapting your own. If this magic is an important part of your setting, you could actually try, making your own kind of setting rule for it, which you could blend together, say the dramatic task and social conflict rules, and come up with something. Because while I wouldn't want to have a long and complicated mechanic every time you cast a spell, I think it's nice if the first time you do it, when it's something weird and dangerous, I think it's nice if you've got something a bit more convoluted than just one roll. That would be my thought. Yeah, no, I agree with this, the social conflict, because while social conflict, I tried running some before, and it turns out that it's just like a normal roll where you need one leader. There's one leader, and then everybody else has to support to it. But most of the time it's also pitted against, it's opposed with someone else. So yeah, it would need a little bit of tinkering in there to make it work. Well, social conflicts can be opposed, but they're not always. You can also do them as a static. Yeah. I just think they work better when they're opposed. They feel more difficult anyway when they're opposed than. Yeah, but I mean, really, they are very similar to the dramatic tasks. The main difference, other than being, also supporting the opposed roles, the big difference for me, at least, is that they have this margin of success instead of a fail or pass, outcome. Yeah, the way I looked at it too, with something like quick encounter, if I was to use that mechanic, is that it would be possible for them to succeed even with a raise, but if one of the musicians in the band score a critical fail, then I can add I can have a random table of crazy things that can happen, like a demon coming out of the portal, or you get cursed with hooves or wings, bat wings that appear. Yeah, I mean, you could even pull in ideas from like the chase rules, where they have complications on the clubs and so on. Put together a little random outcome table or something. I think that could be pretty good fun. I wouldn't want to overcomplicate the system, but if I'm creating a setting and I want to strike a certain theme, I think it's nice to have a few setting rules in there that really make the game feel a little bit different.
Yeah, so that players feel like, yeah, we can really benefit from this spell, but oh man, if we screw this up,
Yeah.
what's going to happen? And then you don't know.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that really worked nicely with the ritual rules in ETU. They really gave it a bit of a unique feel, and I think not copying their ritual rules, but trying to come up with something like that fits the setting could be a worthwhile investment of time.
Very good. You're pretty good at that design thing, aren't you?
Just steal the rules from ETU, Eric. Just do it.
Well, if it works, why reinvent it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If they nailed it, they nailed it.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you think, Carl? Or Gary? Maybe it looks like Gary had something to say.
I just have some questions here because I'm trying to piece this together in my mind. You got a group of band members and they're driving around in their van, and on the side of the road they see, a hitchhiker that's going to be a deadite or something like that. Now they get out and one of the band members wants to play like a boostability song. So they have to now set up all the equipment and play the song for 7 minutes while the deadite stands there and stares at them. Can you set up the example of how you would do that for me so that I have a better idea as to what's going on? Because that just seems a little weird to me.
Well, first of all, I know it's not. First, it's not something that you would do all the time because there's not a whole lot of them. But it's something that you would do when you know that you're going after trouble or that trouble's coming to you. Obviously, you're not going to play for 7 minutes, which is like 42 rounds or something like that, while the deadite would attack you. That'd be stupid. Just like you wouldn't do a ritual in ETU for minutes while you're fighting a demon either. You do it before. There's also the fact that I'm going with a very tongue-in-cheek and B-movie slapstick feel to it. So when they did it the first time, they were kind of jamming in a music store, and there was someone banging on the door in the men's room, and one of the employees of the place was like, "Sir, are you okay?" and things like that, and he was really banging on it. So they started playing a song because a warrior that they had met was teaching them how to use that mechanic basically in game. That was the role for that NPC. So they started playing the song for a couple minutes, and then at the end of the song, I just said that the deadite burst out of the door and jumped up on them, and then they started fighting the deadite. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Yes, in a situation like that, I would do support, where you have the leader. I guess whoever is going to cast the spell, and each one of them has to play their instrument accordingly. Here's a kind of a sort of a side note on that deal. Sometimes in D&D they have they have the hidden perception checks and stuff like that everybody rolls ahead of time. I'm wondering if you could sort of implement that kind of a mechanic where before they go on their adventures and shit like that, you have each of them play an instrument so many times to see what kind of successes they get, and then just check them off as they come. So when suddenly they're in a predicament where they immediately want to attack or get attacked by deadites, they can do like you see in the movies. They'll do like flashbacks, and you see just one guy just rocking it out in his guitar kind of a thing, and you just pull one of his rolls out, or just ask him to do that and pretend that these powers were cast previously while they were jamming. They're actually building their powers, their group power pool up, and
that could be some type of flashback scene with maybe spending a Benny to say, all right, before the encounter we actually played that song. Yeah, that's a good idea too.
A shot in the dark, but I would definitely use like support for that. Everybody supports like the person casting, so everybody has to succeed on their role and stuff like that. But that was just a thought that I was having. Do it like a flashback. So rather than set up the equipment, they jump out and they're all having these visions of when they were rocking it out in their little wherever they were, and see how well they did, and if they succeed, then
rocking it out in mom's basement.
It's kind of a neat idea too, because of the way I'm looking at it is like you can play different songs to achieve different things. Like if you want to pump yourself up, you can play some hard rock. If you want to do something to encourage somebody, you could maybe play some kind of like instrumental that would be like a love melody, or you know what I mean?
Ballad.
Something along those like the ballad, right? It just, you have different types of music that invoke different sorts of feelings, and maybe each one of those feelings does a thing. But
that's what I usually do too, is I turn to them and ask them to describe what type of song, and especially come up with a title. So it's always funny to hear a heavy metal song title,
Right.
like pig fart and things like that. And dedications. Got anything to add to this, Carl?
Yeah, I would actually do it as a quick encounter, because it's a band. Everybody's playing their own role. You got drums, bass, guitar, lead singer, whatever. And I think it's because they're all performing together, trying to make this one ritual or spell happen. They each have their own part to hold on to. So I would actually do it with a quick encounter with, depending on the difficulty of the power or the spell, give them minuses to that roll. All around. So just get it over with. And again, it's all for me. I like to have the characters have their own spotlight, because, you really see them shine when you ask the character, or ask the player, describe, what you did on that one, on your turn, like how well did you do? Or even if they failed, maybe, that could be, more complications for the next guy, or whatever, in the spell. I don't know. There's all kinds of ways you could do it. You could do a short dramatic task, like maybe one round of just a dramatic task. You could do the quick encounter or support roles. I mean, there's varied ways you could do it that I think would be cool. But I like the quick encounter method.
Yeah, so far I think it was my favorite. We've only done it twice, but I think the quick encounter was better. But I think next time I'm gonna try to come up with a little chart maybe, and try social conflict like Richard suggested, and see how that goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing is that I wouldn't want to do that every time they're casting a spell, but it's really particularly for the first time they do it, just so that you can kind of set the scene as something new and risky and unpredictable.
Yeah, another thing I was thinking of is penalties per rank of the power. What I do too is, I got the power cards from the Savage Worlds Essential, and I sort of cured that deck to maybe about 20 of them that I thought was fit with what I was going for. And then I just shuffle it. And when they find one of those scrolls, those vinyls, I just pull a card and show it to them. And this is the power that you found. And then leave it up to them to trap it however they want. Like Gary was saying, with, the title or the type of song it is. But yeah, it's heavy metal. And of course it could be speed metal or death metal. I think the group is called Carpathian Doom in our campaign, and it's mostly kind of glam death metal, Scandinavian death metal type of thing with some glam rock in there. So I think it was funny, last session they had to perform, because the overarching plot of this plot point campaign, well, it's kind of in the background, but it takes place throughout the whole thing, is they go through a talent show. So it was the qualifications last session. And because of something that happened earlier, they had lost their budget for their costumes. So they had to improvise costumes at the last minute. One of them had like a wet rubber suit that's really sweaty in it. One was going Red Hot Chili Peppers with just a sock on. And then the other guy had a cape. So they look so lame. That was so funny.
That's great.
So, yeah, well, thanks for your input, guys. There's some things in there I certainly hadn't thought about or considered. Pretty good. Let's wrap this up. Well, yeah, this is another episode. There, it went. The time flew. That was so fast talking about this. And like I said at the top of the show, I think there is no right or wrong tool for this. It all depends on what you're trying to accomplish, what you're most comfortable with. I was expecting maybe Richard to pull some numbers saying if you use a quick encounter, you got 61.45578.9% chance of success. And if you use support, you got, 82.993% or something like that. But no, I think they're well balanced. It's just, what you're trying to accomplish, who you're putting the focus on, like Carl was saying, one person or the whole group and what they're trying to do. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on the show, Richard, again.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, Richard.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you.
Have you got anything new that you released that you would like to plug on the show now, or something coming up? I think are the Fantasy Archetypes 2 out yet?
No, I've been busy with other things. One thing I would like to mention, though, is that Manuel Sams's Sprawlrunners just hit platinum yesterday.
Wow!
Yeah,
Nice.
It's the first swag product to hit platinum. So that's pretty impressive.
Wow.
Yep.
No, that's fantastic.
That's great.
Isn't there some issue too with Interface Zero? Isn't that supposed to be sort of like the head cyberpunk thing for Savage Worlds?
Yeah, but they're very different. They're very different products. They're both very good products. But Interface Zero is really a full cyberpunk setting, whilst Sprawlrunners is more like the Shadowrun style, where you've got shamans and magic, spirit magic as well. So it's like a magic and cyberpunk blend, but there's no actual setting in there. It's a toolkit, and it's very much focused on using trappings for your cybernetics. So you don't get all these implants from a big shopping list, but instead it shows how you can take existing Savage Worlds edges and describe them as implants or modifications, augmentations, and so on. And Interface Zero is kind of the opposite perspective. It has lots of different things that you can buy and add on to your character. So they're really kind of completely opposite in a way.
Yeah, you're looking at 70-some pages versus 700-some pages.
Sure. I mean, Interface Zero is a big product, but it also really is. It is different. It is a proper cyberpunk setting, which is for people who want to have a particular setting to use. Whereas Sprawlrunners is a toolkit for people who already know what setting they want, and they just want to have the rules for it. And I think that's why it appealed a lot to Shadowrun players, because they didn't have to get a new setting. They already knew what setting they wanted. They wanted Shadowrun. But with Sprawlrunners, they could then use the Shadowrun setting, but with a Savage World system, which is a lot faster and a lot easier for people to use. And so I think that was really a good marketing ploy there.
Yeah, and you did release a countdown deck too for it, right?
Yeah, I created a countdown deck for it. I spoke to Manuel about that because he had pretty much enough artwork for the deck. He had to buy a few more pieces. And I said, if you like, I can put together a countdown deck for that. So, I think that's pretty cool, because people were asking, they're saying, what sort of action deck can I use? I want something with a sort of cyberpunk theme. But of course, Shadowrun and Sprawlrunners aren't just cyberpunk, they're also magic. So, this countdown deck then had magic stuff in there as well as cyberpunk. And I think it's always nice to have an action deck that really matches your setting, even though, as I say, Sprawlrunners is a toolkit rather than a setting. I think the implication is that you're using that with the Shadowrun setting.
Yeah, he's been screwing around with Savage Shadowrun for ever since I first met him, many, many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now. So I don't think they could have picked a better guy, or, he couldn't have picked a better setting. He knows it so well. So congratulations to Manuel. That's really cool. I'm glad that it did so well. I mean, it's fantastic.
All right. So with that said, this is Eric saying, are you hungry? Get yourself a Mech Big Deal.
I thought you were going to say a foodie ninja.
That too. You can cook your McDeal and your Food Ninja.
This is Carl saying, do you want to Benny that?
And this is Gary saying, keep your pants on, keep it fun. Thanks, everyone. We're out of here.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Wild Eye Podcast. If you would like to get in touch with us, our email address is thewildeye@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. But for us, we're the Wild Eye Podcast. Also, we do have a Patreon. So if you would like to support us, our address is www.patreon.com/thewildeye. And speaking of which, the Wild Eye Podcast would like to thank the following patrons: Rob Towell, Conrad Erasmus Neuberg, Corey Judd, Emma Wakeland, Kevin Stanley, Perry Chalmers, Ray Racia, Dan Brown, Jan Jetmon, Daniel Sams, Mr. Stagg, Zovia RPG Maps, Chris Grant, Robert Dorgan, Andy Hall, Brian Kaser, Daryl Kexier, Jens Kronheim, Sid the Squid, Knuckle Dave Anderson, Tor Bjertness Peterson. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you later.